Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Today we're back with another video and we are going to be wiring up lights on a trailer, whether it be a stock trailer, a flatbed trailer like this that we haul hay with, or even just your little community small trailer that you would haul behind a minivan. Doesn't really matter. All the lights are very similar. That's what we're going to be going through today. In this video, I will cover the basic tools, equipment, connectors, all of those things that you will need to do this job. And I'll have links for everything to make it easy for you in the description. Things that I have found over the years that are a little higher quality or better for this job. I will also show you things that I've learned the wrong way. So this is now the third time I'm wiring this exact trailer for somebody else. And I'll show you ways you can prevent damage, and whether it be from weather, water, corrosion, things like that, or just stupidity, keeping your plug in your truck and driving away. We'll go through it all. I'll show you how to prevent some of this stuff. Obviously, common sense is needed. And at the end of the video, I will take you into a little more in-depth. So I'll go through the basics, but I'm gonna go in-depth with how to troubleshoot and find issues with your lights, if that would be. And I'll walk you through the multimeter. So I'll take you through and show you how to use the multimeter if you're new to that, but I'll show you how to test and figure out what is going wrong with your lights, why when you turn the left turn signal on, the right turn signal comes on, what you can do to fix those things. I'll go through all that today in the video. Stick around. Welcome back. First, I will go through this trailer, quick, simple, and easy, give you the main gist so that if you're just here to get how I do it quickly, you'll get that first. Then I will go into the long-winded, as some of my comments say, the teaching part of it, the whys, the tips, the how I do everything, and why I do it a certain way. That will come second. So let's get started. First, you're gonna mount your trailer connection box up towards the front. We'll see it here in a second. This is essentially the brain of your trailer, and I will use this color pattern here. Next, I will wire in the ground wire first, and I mount it right to the frame inside our box to our white peg, and I will wire up the connector that goes to our vehicle to every one that is in here. I will show that later. Then I will take my multimeter and simply plug this into my vehicle and test every peg that my colors from my vehicle match the color pattern here on my box. I will show that at the end of the vehicle, or at the end of the video. If you don't know how to use a multimeter, I'll walk you through all that, but that'll be at the very end. So I have tested, made sure all of my colors match inside my box. This is now my roadmap, my brain, and I will use these colors all the way through. I will speak about these. Then we will take our hardcore wire that has everything in it in our trailer, and we will run it all the way to the tail end without splicing and stopping. I want it to go all the way there securely without cutting into this the entire length. So for a 26-foot long trailer, I typically order 5 feet more, but it does come in 5-foot increments. I put a 30-foot cable on this trailer. You can see I also put protective covering on it, and I went all the way to the rear with it. Next, I will mount all my lights. So whether you have pocket hole lights like this, or you have box lights like these two here in the center, we'll explain that in a bit. I will get all of my lights on the entire trailer mounted up with the wires on the inside. When I am mounting these boxes, and you'll learn this later, but the wire colors don't match up with the wires necessarily. You wouldn't trust that. I make a map of each one. So for instance, these pocket lights have a red and black wire. The red is the hot, the black is the ground. But on these square boxed lights that I mounted, the yellow was the turn, the brown was the tail, and the white was the ground. So I need to make a map of each style of light that I've purchased and what color matches with my box up front. So the black on this one, these pocket lights, I will say that is ground, and red is for the tail light, which is green. Over here, I'll make a map for that one. We will come to the end of that big black cable, and that's where we will start. And I will take one color at a time, okay? So I typically start with my white ground wires, and I go to each light grounding them. Throughout this video, I'm gonna say blue as brakes, just like on this box, we see brakes. I want you to understand that is not the brake lights. That is the brake controller that makes the trailer brakes work. So it engages the disc brakes that stops the trailer. It is not the light. At each light, we're gonna make a connection to the ground. So I'm only gonna explain the white wire, but it will be the same for every wire going forward. So we're gonna have wires in a heat shrink connector. I do recommend heat shrink connectors. You'll see there are 4, and so I want to explain these. You're gonna have the white wire that comes from the big, thick black wire that came from your brain. That is your main input. You're gonna have another another white wire that comes off, and I usually make this 6 to 10 inches long, and that is gonna be my pigtail for my ground. You do not need this one necessarily at every point, but I like to add multiple grounds throughout the trailer. So I'm gonna have another wire coming even with the one coming in that I will then mount to my frame. Then you're gonna have 2 wires going out. One wire here will go to the light that you're working on currently. The other wire will then go to the next light so that they all are connected together. So the grounds are all connected, they all feed off. So in some places, you're gonna have 3. You're gonna have a white wire coming in from your last light or back from your main terminal, and you're gonna have an out wire and one going to the light. And then at some places, I add that 4th with a pigtail with a connector that I'll show you, and I mount that to the frame. These pigtails that we leave off, there are many different types of connectors that you can use. I prefer a circle, and I will run a self-tapping screw through this to the frame, which on a trailer this heavy, this metal is pretty heavy. I'll have to pilot drill those. The self-tapping screw is not gonna go in unless it's a thin piece of metal. You can use this though. You can find a bolt somewhere on the frame, whether it's mounting up a bracket or something else that was mounted there, and you can loosen that bolt up and slide this in and tighten it back down. That is a good way to prevent drilling holes in your frame, but these break off much quicker than this. That is just my recommendation. When I use these connectors, they are heat shrink as well. I will heat shrink them and black tape them. I typically don't mount these to the frame until my entire trailer is done. So I like to connect everything, test my whole trailer, then go back, heat shrink everything, heat shrink over it, black tape it, zip tie it up, and that is the point when I will mount these connectors. That way, if there's something messed up, I don't have to undo and cut and shorten wires. I also do not make my wires very tight. I am okay with loops, where I will put wires together and zip tie them in order to prevent me from having tension on my wires. So I'll go through it here with you really quick. We did the white. We took the white wire off. We went to every ground on every light using our map. Do not trust the colors once again. So I used that map that I built to hit the ground on every light throughout the entire trailer. And at the trailer brakes, these trailer brakes will have a hot wire and a ground wire. We will also ground that. Then I will sequentially go through each color. I have a pattern I like to do. So I go the ground everywhere, then I go to my trailer brakes because that's very important to me. I get that blue wire out of the way. Then I go to the turn signal lights. I do this because I'm colorblind and this is easy for me to mess up. You will see that my turn signals, my left turn and my right turn, are red and brown. That is very close in color for my eyes. Sometimes I even get my kids out here depending on how the contrast of the wire is. And I will go ahead and do that on my lights. So I'll run my red and just do that side of the turn signals, the lights that I want to have turn signals. And then I'll do my brown for the other side so that my turn signals are out of the way. Lastly, I will go through and hit every running light. So if that would be these lights here on the side or the lights on the end, on the rear end, I want to explain this. This is a tail light. This is not your brake lights. So if you think about when you start your car in the evening and the lights just come on to show a tail light that you're there, you're not hitting the brake, that is this light, this green one. The trailer, when you hit your brakes, will light up both the brown and the red. Whatever you're using as a turn signal, both sides will light up at that point with your tail lights. Okay, that is what will work throughout here. The green wire on this schematic will stay on all the time, and it will not go on or off with any signals from your vehicle. If you are running during the day, that may change. So this is dependent on your vehicle's brake controller. My vehicle has a special brake controller. When I plug in trailer brakes, and I want you to think about this, you turn your car on during the day, your taillights aren't on because your headlights aren't on. And the brake lights only come on when you hit the brakes. But at night, when your headlights are on, your taillights are on all the time. And then when you hit the brakes, they go brighter because another light lightens up. This green light on some brake controllers, you won't have any lights on this trailer, just like your vehicle, and it will only push those lights on when you hit the brakes. Some brake controllers are smart brake controllers, and even if you don't have your headlights on, they realize that those tail lights need to be marked because they want to give extra safety control going down the road. And so I have seen some vehicles that will light these tail lights up even during the day, even though my truck tail lights are not on because my headlights are not on. The other way to work around this is if you're pulling a trailer, take your tail light controller from inside the vehicle, and instead of leaving them on auto like I do, go ahead and turn the headlights on, and it will turn those lights on for you. Now you have your whole trailer wired up, you plug it into the vehicle, and you test everything. Have somebody in the car pushing and turn signals, and you make sure every light works. You haven't heat shrunk anything, you haven't zip tied anything up yet, and that way, if you've made a mistake, you can go back and test with a multimeter, or for instance, just go look at the colors and make sure you are good. Color of these wires do not matter necessarily. It does help the next guy that is trying to fix if you buy multiple different colored wire to wire this trailer up. But you could run white to everything and it would be legal and it would work. I just recommend you spend the money, buy these small rolls, okay? They're probably $5 a piece and you're gonna need 6 or 8, how many ever colors you're running there, and use that correct color throughout because it will help you during the testing phase if something is wrong. Now there were 2 colors that we didn't talk about, and I wanna talk about that pigtail. So I talked about when you had 4 wires coming out of this, one was going a pigtail and being mounted to the frame. I want you to understand, I wanna be clear, that is only the ground. You do not wanna ground out, put a pigtail for any other color except your white wire, that is your ground. The 2 other colors we didn't talk about was our yellow and our black. So our backup lights and our battery or our hot wire. If you wanna add backup lights, and so I typically just cap the yellow wire off. Most trailers don't have extra backup lights. Now, if you buy some fancy light boxes and there's the white light that will come on just like in your vehicle, you could wire that up to the yellow backup light. Or I have seen people, especially on cattle trailers, they will have some white lights mounted. I'll show you some here real quick. So this is on my Gator. These are just blanket white lights, right? We're using this as extra headlights, but on a cattle trailer, you could buy some of these and mount these, any type of plain light. So when you turned your back up, when you started backing a trailer up, these lights would come on and help to give you more light, more visibility while you're backing up. But that's what that yellow wire is. The black wire from our box, what I call the hot, it says battery on here, but it is a hot wire. It can be used for external or extra things. And so I use this a lot on cattle trailers to have internal lights. If you have a box trailer, this would also work. Or if you want a light up under the gooseneck, some people, I will wire an extra light up there that they can flip on to help give them light at night to hook up or to crank up their jack or whatever it would be, right? You're gonna come from that black wire. You can come directly from the mounting box that we mounted or from the end of the line if you want some rear lights to help you loading dozers, whatever it would be that you're gonna be doing. You're gonna come off that black wire to a switch, okay, something like this. And then I recommend putting an inline fuse. So you can buy these kits, you simply connect it in and you put an amperage screw there because this black wire is always hot. And if there is a fluctuation, the only breaker or fuse that it will blow is in the vehicle. Whereas if you added an external fuse like this that is lower, so for instance, I have a 30 amp fuse in my truck that runs these lights, that powers this, and I put a 15 or a 20 in line like this, so that way if it's gonna blow a fuse, it's gonna blow it on my trailer on these external extra lights instead of in my truck. So I will simply come from the inline fuse and wire up each light. So I have internal lights. You can run the ground, the white wire to these extra lights as well, or sometimes I simply take these extra lights and just mount them right to the frame, ground each light right to the frame. I have these in my cattle trailer. It's really nice at night, and I have them on the rear end as well. If I'm unloading cattle at night, I can flip this switch, the lights inside the cattle trailer come on, and I have 2 external lights that light up where I'm gonna let these cows out. When it's dark, they get a little more scared, a little more anxious. So those lights come out there to help them see where they're gonna go when they exit the trailer if I'm letting them into a new pasture at night, which doesn't happen often, but that's what that is black wire is for. My recommendation though is a heavy duty switch and an inline fuse. You can put the fuse before or after the switch. It really doesn't matter. It's whatever is most convenient for me, and where I'm mounting is where I put it. Well, there you have it. I hope that helps you if you wanted the quick and short version. You need good tools, you need good connectors. I recommend heat shrink, overheat shrink connectors. That is a little overkill, but you can buy rolls of heat shrink. And I recommend you use a butane torch, not a cigarette lighter. Tape everything up, zip tie everything up, and you're on your way. You have lights and everything is secure. All right, we're gonna go on to some teaching, some whys, and go through some of this stuff. First, I wanna show you some issues of why I'm adding extra lights to this trailer. Okay, we've had some issues. They actually plugged this into the truck and drove away. That's why I had to rewire this trailer. But I've added some extra lights because they are hard to see. Let's look at that. So you'll notice on this trailer, there's a light right there, but this ramp is blocking it. So if you're hauling hay down the road, the main light, the main tail light is right back in there. It's really hard to see going down the road. People have trouble. Now they have some running lights, some pocket running lights, which help. But a blinker, my hazards, there's just not enough lights on this. So what I have done is I have added a new school kind of a box light on this in between these 2 ramps. So as we're hauling hay, I just want more visibility. I want more visibility from people to be safer. Some people don't really respect farmers as I'm going slow, and I get it. I pull over if I have a long line of traffic behind me. I get it, it's annoying to wait on a farmer, but it's really important that we're safe as we're pulling trailers. And so I'm adding a bunch of lights to this. I just didn't think it had enough from the factory. The other thing that the lights control on this trailer, as far as the wiring connecting that we're gonna be doing today, is the trailer brakes. Currently, this trailer has a brake caliber system on it for brakes, but they don't work because they're electronic and the wiring doesn't work. And when you're hauling 16 round bales that we typically haul on this trailer, you need those trailer brakes. We're gonna go through basically the same stuff, but I'm gonna do some teaching points and try to give you some of the best things that I've learned over time. And so the first thing we did was we mounted our trailer brake box. Okay, once again, I'm gonna show these colors. Okay, so if you need to pause this and write this down, if you haven't bought one of these boxes, but this is my favorite box that I have found, and it is down in the description. I haven't showed you the inside of this yet. I really like because each one of these pegs has the color on it, okay? So when we mount this on the front like you saw, we run those wires in, and I use these circle connectors for each wire inside here so that they slide over. They simply tighten down with a little nut inside there, if you can see that. And you don't crank these down too hard, but that way if you need to move these things, you can, okay? They have these different slide-ins that go in and out of this. They have some that come with the package that are already circles that will slide over your wire, and then they have these little metal clamps that will clamp down with some screws that they send you. And so you mount this box in a section that's out of the way. If it's on a hitch, goosenecks is pretty self-explanatory. It's mounted up high. If it's on a hitch, you want this someplace that it's not gonna get hit a lot, maybe even back towards the trailer a little more than out next to the ball. And then I put that sticker on this. So the stickers come with this. It actually came with two. It's nice to have one on the inside in case this ever gets ripped up. So you could put one on the inside of here. I have one on my electrical box connector. So I have a DeWalt box or whatever that has all my connectors in it. And I just leave that sticker on there all the time because I wire trailers and fix things. But those are some helpful hints to, this is your master. This is your brain of the trailer. And I really like the setup that you match those colors up. But as long as this is your master and you stick with this consistently from the front to the back on the trailer wire, everything will work appropriately. A little confusing to you, what you're gonna do when you mount this, the very first thing I do is mount the hookup to my truck or van or whatever you're wiring it to, and then I test this, which we'll show at the end of the video how I use a multimeter. So I wanna make sure when I hit the brakes, does the brake peg come hot? Does the connector that I connected to my truck, is it gonna send the correct signal to the correct color? So the black should always be hot, the white, the ground, should always be dead, and you go through them, left turn signal, right turn signal, everything that you wanna use, does it come hot correctly from your vehicle? I will tell you, if you have a problem where you wired a trailer or you bought a trailer and when you plug it in, something is off, like when you turn the left turn signal on, the right one comes and vice versa, you can fix it in this without completely unwiring your trailer. You'll simply switch the wire going out to the trailer to the correct peg color, and then it will work. The color of the wire does not determine what happens. It's the signal of electricity through that wire, which this is essentially your brain, your computer hub of your trailer is this box. We mount our box, and then we test our box, and then we start running from this. The very first thing I would run is a ground wire to the white. And so right at this box, maybe even on the same screw, I run a wire out, I mount it to the frame of wherever I'm at, and I run one in and put a ground wire. This is the #1 problem I've seen with people with trailers. They bring me a trailer and they say the lights used to work, something's going on, I plug them in, now they don't work. 9 times out of 10, a ground wire somewhere is broken off. And so my first tip or second tip with wiring here is that you put multiple grounds. And so other places along the trailer where I'm wiring something up, I'll add a pigtail in and run a ground wire to the frame. So on this 26-foot trailer, I actually have 4 places that ground wires are mounted to the frame. That way, if one of them breaks, I know I am grounded somewhere else, and they are all connected together. The white wire is all put together. It will all feed to that ground. The better your lights are grounded, the more chances that you have for success and stopping those catastrophic failures. Whereas something breaks, you break a light, somebody pulls it off, and then the lights don't work and you can't figure out why. Those ground problems are those major problems. Next, you're gonna run your main wire hub from your box throughout your trailer. I'm gonna put a link to the one that I used on this large trailer. Some of you though, if you have a smaller trailer, will use a wiring harness with only 5 wires that looks like this with this smaller connector. So if you have a minivan and a little 5x5 trailer or a 5x8 trailer, you're probably using something like this, but I would recommend a heavier duty wire that is like the one down in the description, and you'll see it as we go throughout this trailer in wire. This one does not have brakes, okay? So if you have a trailer, a small one like that doesn't have brakes, typically they're like this. A big trailer will have this big 1/2-inch black wire with all of these colors inside of the coating that you will use throughout the trailer. Now I'm gonna show you the lights like this because it's so much easier than showing you underneath the trailer. You're gonna have your lights mounted or placed wherever you want on the trailer, or perhaps they're already there and you're just replacing them. You're buying replacements. The third tip, I guess, is gonna be never trust these colors on any of these lights. do not match colors from the light. Don't worry about the color from the light. You need to look on the light, the box that it comes on, the packet that it comes with. Sometimes it's etched in the plastic what the colors mean, and you need to look at what it means. So for instance, on this wire here, the red is the hot and the black is the ground. But on other lights that I have on this trailer, the white was the ground and the black was the hot, the power wire. Some lights will have 3 colors if they're a 2-function light. This is a 1-function light. Power hits it, it lights up, that's it. Some, it will have an outer ring that may be the turn signal, and the inner ring is your light, your running light. So it'll have 3 wires. Once again, do not trust the colors. Look at what those colors operate. So for instance, I've had a light on this that the brown was the running light, and it said brown tail light, yellow was the signal, and white was your ground. Those colors don't match the scheme that's on this box. You have to match the function with the correct color of the scheme that you want. I see a lot of people when they're wiring a trailer that mess that up. They think, oh, well, match red to red and black to black. If you did that on this, you would have a left turn signal making this one hot and a hot wire making this one hot, and the light would stay on all the time and it would probably burn out because there's no ground. Fourth tip is when you are connecting all of these lights to your wiring harness, you're going to use some kind of a connector. Now, if you're high speed and you're going to solder these together, you're probably not even watching my video. You don't need that. But everybody else, you're going to need a connector. These are heat shrink connectors. I recommend you spend the money and you buy heat shrink connectors. You can buy a pack on Amazon, which will be down in the description, and it doesn't really matter. Now they have these connectors that are not heat shrink. They just simply connect, and you can buy a roll of heat shrink tubing, slide over it and heat shrink. If moisture gets to these connectors, they will rust, they will break, and you will not have lights. That's why I always recommend heat shrink, and then I double them. I'll use a heat shrink connector, then heat shrink tubing over that, and then sometimes if it's in an area where mud or water could flip up, I will also wrap it in black tape or coat it with a plastic wire tubing, which you can also buy, and I'll show you that in a second. So this here is our plastic tubing. You can buy rolls of this, and you can see that big thick wire that I was talking about, that is this wire right here. All of those wires are inside there, and I've also put this protected coating on it to keep something from wearing through it. This trailer will vibrate, it goes down the road, it bounces, and it will wear through this wire over time. And this stuff can be cantankerous, like you're watching me fight with it with one hand here, but this will protect it from causing damage to your trailer and losing your lights. My advice to you when you are making wire connections and using heat shrink and all of this stuff is not to heat shrink until the entire trailer is wired and you have tested everything. That way, you don't spend all that time heat shrinking and taping and tying up and then figure out something's wrong. So wire the whole trailer, use your connectors, and then go back and heat shrink when you're done. Once your trailer is wired and everything works, we're gonna go through and heat shrink everything and then zip ties. You're gonna need a lot of zip ties over zip tie things. Do not crank them down super tight, okay? So do not put a tension on any of the wires, but you want everything secured so that it doesn't vibrate and move and bounce around or wires hanging down. The other tip there would be when you are wiring, leave extra wire. You don't want to have tension on the wire around curves. It's okay to even have a loop where wires hang so that there is some movement available for it when you go to zip tie. There's nothing worse than getting everything done and then realizing it's hanging out in midair and can't be tied tight to the frame because you didn't leave enough extra wire. I want to go over a few tools now that you're going to need. You're going to need a good set of wire strippers, okay? So these are my Milwaukees. I've had a few pair of these. I am brand loyal to this type. but Klein and a lot of other manufacturers make really good wire strippers, but you don't want to have a cheap set like the Harbor Freight or the old school grandpa set like this. Buy a good set of wire strippers. You want a good set of crimpers, okay? Something that is made specifically and links and clicks in for all of your butt connectors. Once again, this will accomplish the job, but it is not the best tool to have. To heat shrink, you're gonna need a little butane torch. These work well. Please recommend to me a better brand. I have went through several of these, the pins, and I can't find a good one on Amazon that will consistently work, that I can refill and use year after year. I tend to go through one tank and then they break or they won't light. But you need a good butane torch. A cigarette lighter will work, but it is not the best thing. You really need one that's meant for electricity like this. Cigarette lighters tend to overheat and burn through wire, whereas this will shrink it quickly and not burn through. The last thing you're gonna need, of course, is a roll of black electrical tape. Do not use masking tape or duct tape. Electrical tape is specific for electrical stuff. It wraps tight, prevents water. So I'm kind of overkilling here. We're using heat shrink connectors, heat shrink over our heat shrink connectors, and sometimes black tape over all of that, because I've seen how many times year after year people will wear through wires, things happen, and so the better it is protected, the longer it is going to last. And I like to do these things once and never see a trailer again, because the lights are perfect unless something is broke off by hitting them or damaging them or whatever that would be. And then they're easy to fix. Everything is there and you know what you're doing. Next, I want to talk about lights that you can buy. If you're doing this and you're buying the lights on Amazon or wherever it would be, different things that you can buy, styles of lights, and how you should place them, okay? So we have a lot of different lights. You saw the pocket lights, you saw the big box light. I like that big box thing because it's a big bright light, and it actually has 4 functions on it. So it'll have a tail light outer ring, it'll have a brake light in the center that all of that will light up sometimes, and it has a side mount box that has a blinker on it. And so it's kind of a one done kind of a light. You put one on each side, it's your brake lights, it's your tail lights, it's your turn signals. And if you don't want to put a bunch of lights on your trailer, that is a nice little kit to buy these square mounted box lights, and they already come with bolts. So you simply put your bolts up, make some marks, drill some holes, and put them in there, and they're pretty well mounted. But there are a lot of different lights out there. These are kind of cool, these longer shaft lights. You'll notice there's 3 wires, so they are multifunctional. They don't tell you, these cheaper Chinese Amazon lights, they don't tell me what these lights do, okay? So I'm gonna assume that the white is my ground. So when you have a white on any kind of electrical, it's usually a ground or a traveler. And then you have a red and black, and it probably does not matter what these are. They're both gonna be some sort of a hot wire. You're gonna put one on a tail light and one on a signal light or a brake of some sort. And so if you put it on a signal light, I would put both the red and the brown to this maybe, but you never really know. So you can take 9-volt batteries and you can put them on here and see kind of what lights up sometimes, but that's a confusing part about getting a light like this. The other thing I don't like about this style of a light is you have to drill a pretty big hole in the frame to get this section of the light to go through, and then you have to drill one hole at each end to put some kind of mounting screw, right? You could 2-side tape these, but that's not gonna last very long. Other style of lights are these little teeny, sometimes called puck lights or running lights, but you just simply drill a teeny hole in the back because these are gonna mount flush to the frame. So you're gonna end up drilling 3 holes for this one light, 2 mounting holes, and then 1 bigger hole in the center where these lights will go through the frame. The other thing that I recommend, instead of having all kinds of running lights on your small little farm trailer, you're trying to save money, is just reflective tape, okay? So this is quite nice. You can clean off, soap and water, clean off the metal, then take alcohol pads. Go to a pharmacy, go to a Dollar General, get you some alcohol pads, alcohol in a jar on a rag from Harbor Freight or Home Depot, whatever it would be. Clean it with alcohol, put these things on. These are super cheap. You can buy a pack of 10 for less than 10 bucks. And you can put these around. You can see right here on my trailer, right there is some reflective tape. It's a good way to add some warning with reflection without having to do all this wiring. So this is kind of nice. It obviously does not replace brake lights, but you can simply use some of this instead of doing a lot of wiring. Next, let's talk about light placement, okay? So sometimes people will just simply screw these marker lights to the side. You can see we have a nice little puck light here on our trailer, but I want you to think about backing into something on accident or somebody running into something, okay? If you have a lower trailer with a fender, which we'll go out and look at in a second, but think about somebody breaking these off, somebody hitting them, and that's where you want to put them. So this puck light here really kind of is open. There's nothing protecting it here if somebody were to run something into the side of this trailer. So it's kind of at a disadvantage. In fact, the one on the other side is broke. But as we go down through here, through the trailer a little more, you'll see here, there's a puck light. That's actually broke off, but it has this metal rail over it, right? And so if I was gonna add some of those marker lights, think about adding them underneath here where nobody can hit them or stuff doesn't go up on them. If you're chaining something down, think about that kind of stuff. And the tail is really where people back into stuff or ramps. They don't think about those ramps swinging. Let's look at some of that stuff. So we've already been back here and talked about from the factory. They did a really poor job on this trailer where that light is blocked by this ramp. Now, can it be seen? Yes. Is it legal? Is a cop going to harass you? Well, it came from the factory, so probably not. But it's really about safety to me, and so that's why I'm mounting this box here. These are those boxes that I talked about that I really like, other than the fact that the colors of the wires are all jacked up and they're not right. But I want my lights to be seen, so where I'm mounting them is important. Now on the rear end, if somebody backed into this, if this trailer got backed into something, it's going to hit these ramps first before it comes and crushes my lights. On the other thing, if I would to mount underneath this frame, that would be a nice spot to mount something. You're less likely. But as you would run over something, I've seen people taking back these trailers into a different grade and the bottom of this gets rubbed. So that's going to be a bad spot. It's going to break those lights off. Ultimately, there's nothing that is completely foolproof, but you want to think about all of those kind of issues when you're placing your lights in. So maybe underneath here, tight in would be the best place for those little puck lights if you're looking to add a little bit more tail lights back here. So here we have my it's a 20-footer. It's a nice little trailer, but it's a lowboy trailer, sometimes called a car hauler. We haul a lot of equipment on this. It's not great for round bales. We do haul square bale straw on this, but anyways, the trailer itself doesn't have a ton of lights on it. And I thought about adding some more marker lights along the side. But when you look at this trailer, there's no rail system to protect from somebody hitting it and breaking those lights off. There's not a great spot. Perhaps right underneath here, if I was to come and mount right to this frame a little bit behind, I could get a light in there for the side marker, and if somebody ran into this side, it wouldn't break that light off. One mistake I've seen people doing, and I get that they are cool, is putting lights up on top of fenders, right? So you put a light up on top of a fender. I've seen them from the factory this way. And that light is cool. You're going down the road, it shines, you're like, oh, look at this nice new trailer. That is the quickest light that anybody breaks off. They throw something up, it hits the fender, and bam, that light gets busted off. I see that light broke more than any other light on a trailer. Now, lights underneath the fender well in this area here, right? Those are cool. I really like that it just kind of gives a glow around the wheel well. It's a nice side marker light if somebody's seeing you going down the side, if you're turning a curve or something. It adds a little light in there, but that area is the easiest to get muddy and the easiest for corrosion. There's more water, there's more dirt in that area, obviously. So you're really gonna have to think about that. The other thing, if you mount it up underneath, where is that screw or bolt going to? So think about that kind of stuff. I really don't like any lights on my fenders or wheel wells. If I did it anywhere, it would be up here in the front, maybe down here where it mounts to the frame right in this area here. perhaps you could put something there. Now I'm gonna try to show you this without taking this trailer out of the barn, but see, we have these bars here on the back, and there is some pocket lights there. Now this trailer only has one set of lights on the back. There's 2 discs, there's one running, one turn signal and brake light, and it's enough, it gets me by legally, but I wanted to add some more lights back there. The problem with adding box lights or those little puck lights is that bar, and that bar is there for the ramps. This trailer has ramps that you hook up on it, and so you have to think about, if I put lights there, does the hook for the ramp hit those lights? And you say, oh, we could get it through, and that's kind of where I've been. I could slide it over and my ramp wouldn't necessarily hit it. But when you're driving something up on, that ramp moves, and surely I would bust those lights off. So ultimately, I haven't added a lot of lights to this style of trailer yet. I may in the future, but I did want to show you this for the hitch. We talked about where you mount that box. This trailer from the factory has a nice little section here where that box is in there, where it can't be broke off, where it's down and let in. But most trailers aren't built this well, with lots of different angles and pockets in there for that. So if I was gonna mount that box on this trailer and I didn't have anything, a type of trailer like this, I would probably come back here and mount that right here in this place. Maybe not on my warning stickers, but somewhere back there further where it was out of the way, maybe on top of the cross member, but I could see myself something hitting it and busting it off on the side, underneath, maybe even underneath the trailer, just somewhere where it's not gonna hit. I see these things broke all the time. All right, well, I hope all of that helps you as far as ideas, ways that you can improve this thing. Really, the overkill of heat shrinking thing is the best thing. I see more issues with corrosion because it's just standard wire, and even from the factory. Some of these factories, some of these trailer companies that are pumping out trailers, they really need to do a better job with their lights. If you're buying a cheap trailer from whatever big box store, those trailers are mass produced and they don't have a lot of heat shrink stuff. They work great the day you buy them, but they're looking to cut costs and cut corners and just get the bare minimum out. And you're simply, after a few years, gonna have to go through and replace some of this stuff. So when you do it right. Use heat shrink tape, heat shrink connectors, get stuff secured up with a bunch of zip ties, all the things that we've talked about, and it will make this trailer last for years. Now, some of the higher end trailers, and this is the way you're gonna tell quality of trailers, they will have steel tubes ran along the frame for wire to go in so that it does not get damaged. When you look under a trailer, that is one sure way to look at quality of build. If you look under there and it's simply, I have seen, let me show you these things. I have seen these glue sticky things, and these are nice for in some electrical panels and different things, but you simply stick these on with two-sided tape, and then you run a zip tie down through this section, and it allows you to zip tie wires in. I've seen these on trailers from trailer companies. These are junk. These are not meant for outdoor weather, okay? They're not meant to hold. Will they last for a few months? Yes, enough to get you to buy the trailer and leave, and then it's your problem. This is not high quality. And I'm not gonna beat these trailer companies up or name them by name, and I will also wanna talk about my quality today. I've showed you how to increase the quality with all of the stuff that we've talked about, but there are even better ways to do this than I am showing. Some of these higher end lights will have junction boxes that wires go in, and that is a sealed, watertight junction box on the back of the light, okay? Or they'll have a junction box, and you can buy individual junction boxes that you would mount on the inside of the frame, run your wires into, making these heat shrink connectors and putting everything in a watertight junction box. For me, I'm not gonna say it's overkill because I'm all about over-engineering things and making them last forever, doing it the best way I can, but I don't have a lot of material like that. So trying to buy American-made lights, high-quality wire, high-quality connectors, sometimes I'm just buying the Amazon stuff that I can find because I don't have an access to find a replacement light that fits in the exact hole. finding a trailer company that you can buy your lights from. It's worth a little bit more money if you're gonna do it that way, to go and say, this is a light I have. You're a trailer company with replacement parts. Can I get this exact light, this exact fitting that fits in? Instead of what I'm gonna have to do on this trailer, I have to epoxy one of these puck lights in because the rubber fitting is not the exact same size that came from the factory. So overall, I think I do a good job, and I'm showing you a good way to do it. But understand, when you're looking to buy a trailer or you wanna look for these quality things. And if you see a junction box, that meant they really took care. Soldering wires are much better. So if they have a hub of power and they're running soldered wires in, and then they're heat shrinking over, it's cheaper you don't have to buy these connectors. A soldering, it takes a lot more time, it takes more skill, and there's often more failure from people soldering that don't do it all the time without a junction box. I prefer the connectors. I've had better success than I am soldering, and I'm not spending all that money on extra junction boxes. So with full humility, I'm not perfect, but I think I've showed you a high quality way of things that you can use to increase your success when wiring a trailer. But look for that kind of stuff when you're buying something. When you're buying something used, are wires hanging down and dangling? Are they just selling you something cheap to get it out of the lot? There's no warranty on it. Or have they done it right? Have they put stuff in tubes? Have they put extra wrap connector around all their wires? Is everything in heat shrink tape, all that kind of stuff? Now that we got it wired, I've given you tons of information and been long-winded. I'm gonna finish wiring. I've got a little bit of stuff I have to do here. You've already seen how I would do it. I'm gonna finish this trailer up, test it for myself, and then I will go through and show you how I do the multimeter testing. That is the last portion of this video. Stick around for that if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so we're up here at the front. I got my multimeter. I just can't get everything to situate, but I will show you this as we go through it. So I'm gonna turn the multimeter onto the DC function. So mine, this Klein, you turn left for DC and right for AC. This is DC power, direct current. And then I set it to a low setting. This says 20. It just gives me 2 decibel points, and you'll see this. And so what I start with is the black power wire, because that is the measurement that should be the same when everything else goes hot. So I'm gonna go ahead over here to this white ground wire and take my black ground peg and put it on that wire so it's always consistent. And then I'm going to put the red on the black screw, okay? And so right now I'm looking at my multimeter and it says 12.6. Okay, so that is my function, and I've got it setting right here. Let me see if I can do it one time with one finger so you can see it actually work. So see there, I'm saying it's 12.69 for that power. When I go to the ground, there's nothing there. And then none of that's my backup lights is showing 2. It's just showing a little bit of current. But you're gonna look at 12. So anything that is 12, 11, round about there, that's gonna mean that light is on. Like if we go over here to the brakes, because the truck is shut off, it's 0 as well, so it's not shooting power. So we'll go through and test each one. I'll have my son get in the truck and then we'll show you how each of these work. Okay, so first we tested hot. We know what that is. We know our ground is dead. We know our trailer brakes is dead. Now we're gonna test the brake lights. You can do right turn signal or left turn signal, it doesn't matter. But the brown and the red. So my red was my left turn, my brown was my right turn. So this peg here and this peg here should both go hot when we hit the brake light. So we put them on it when we're not hitting the brake light, and we're getting a low reading, less than 1, because there's a little bit of power going through here. All right, Gatlin, hit the brakes. So I can see the brake lights right here on my truck. I hit the red, and I'm looking at 11.9, so that's hot. Look at the brown, and we're looking at 12.1, so that is hot. And then we're gonna look at other things down through here. Is there anything else that's hot? So my black wire that's always gonna be hot is back at 12.7. My ground is dead. My blue, now typically if the truck is running, your blue should have power here if you're pushing the brake. But my brake controller doesn't run unless I start my truck, so we're still safe there. So nothing else now has power except the 2 that I want. Okay, next we're gonna test the right turn signal. Now, in order to make sure that everything is working back there, I'm going to test the right side first. So my right side is brown. I put it on brown, and I get a very low voltage reading, 1.9 again. Now I'm going to put it on the red, which is my left turn signal. And I'm going to try to show you this. So it jumps because it's actually clicking in and clicking out like a turn signal does. Okay, so that I can do this with one hand, I've got my red on my red line, which is my left turn signal, and my black on the ground. And you can see it here. It jumps up and down, right? And every time I move, my little plagues, it jumps. But it goes up to 11, goes back down. That's how your turn signal should look. So we're going to repeat that process. Same thing with the right turn signal. Set my ground on my peg. I'm going to test the opposite side first. So I'm looking at my red, which was the left. It's not running, it's low voltage. Checking on my right-sided turn signal, the brown wire, and I'm getting readings of 12.1, and it falls all the way down to like 5. So that tells me my flasher is flashing. Same thing I'm going to go through though. I'm going to just continue to do this with everything. Every time I change a function, I go through and check every pole to make sure what is supposed to be hot is hot and what is supposed to be dead is dead. Lastly here, I'm going to test my running lights. So that's green, it's sometimes called tail lights in our drawings. I'm getting 12.1. So all I did was turn my headlights on my truck on, and I can see my brake lights right here on my truck that they are on. Go back through, check everything else. Are my turn signals hot? No, they're low voltage, and my truck brakes are not running either. So everything is good. All right, sorry about the poor quality of how the camera was sitting. It was just what I had to work with, setting it up there, and I have my 9-year-old in the truck. But I will show you this again. So you're gonna turn to the DC, and I turned to the 20, so I would have 2 decimal places. If you're getting high readings, you can turn it up. It just gives you a lesser number there, right? So you're gonna turn to that DC, and then we're gonna check everything through that. That's how I use the multimeter to check, and I do that when I first wire up the box. I wire up the box, wire up the cord to my truck, and I check it before I ever hook anything on my trailer up. That way I know the signals coming from my vehicle match the box that I got. Now the box that I put down in the link, the colors are right, it's been consistent, but some of these products do not work, and it's usually in that hub, that cable that they send. You'll plug it in, and somehow in some Chinese factory or wherever they're making these things, they've got a wrong color wire. And this is how you check that to ensure that it's gonna match up right and you're not gonna have issues with functions of lights throughout. And you can check that. All you would do then is switch the colors. That's typically what I would do to make my box the master. So if, for instance, my red wire was solid, meaning tail lights, but it was on the red for the blinker, I would just switch that. I would take the red wire, move it to my green screw, because the green is what I want to be my tail lights to match that diagram, and then figure out which one is the signal, and I would match those colors correctly. So to let you know the why, I've done this dozens and dozens of times on dozens and dozens of trailers, and probably 1 out of 20, I get a cable that the color is wrong, right? And I don't know why. Sometimes people bring me hardware and I try to wire it up, but I test this to make sure I don't go through this whole work and get everything heat shrunk and all that and then plug it in and it doesn't work right. And so it depends on what kit you're buying. If you're buying an American-made kit from an American-made trailer company and the diagrams are good, you're probably safe not to use this multimeter. But like I said, I have found some that are wrong, and so I'll do that. If you're getting incorrect readings on other pegs when they're not supposed to be there in this beginning stage, I will then pull the cable out of my truck or whatever vehicle you're using, and it should have a diagram on that flap cover of what peg inside the female plug-in, what those do, and you can test there on the vehicle. Is it the problem with the vehicle or the way somebody wired up a brake controller? Is it sending double signals? I've seen that happen too on older vehicles where somebody has manually wired in a new plug for one of these new prongs, and the wires are wrong there as well. Same thing, I'll go through and fix it, but knowing that if somebody else uses that trailer with that plug, it won't work right. So usually I will advise the guy, bring your truck in, let me fix your truck as well. That's why all your trailers are jacked up. It's not the trailer, it's your truck. Well, there you have it. That was a long video, and I'm sorry. I wanted to go through and try to teach that thing in depth. I did try to go through it fast in the beginning, but I hope that video helped and was useful for you if this is a skill you're looking to gain. You can save a lot of money, and you can really fix these things pretty easily. It doesn't take a lot of practice to get good at doing this. It just takes discipline and attention to detail to make sure you're constantly looking back at your chart, double checking your colors, and wiring those things correctly. I would say some of the biggest points, if you got anything from this vehicle, is use heat shrink material to keep water and dirt and debris away from those connectors. And secondly is make that roadmap of the lights that you buy. Do not trust the wire colors. Those are the two biggest things I see people do. If you have a trailer that's working today and now it's failing for some reason, search for that ground. That is usually the number one thing I find. If people's lights suddenly stop working, usually a ground wire was not sealed correctly. Over time, it busted loose from the screw. Simply put a new connector on, heat shrink it, connect it back to that screw, and I'm willing to bet that will solve 9 out of 10 problems if you have a mysterious trailer that just stops working. Well, thanks for watching, following along with us. Stick around, comment down below if you'd like to see something else that we're working on. We're doing things from time to time here in the shop. We would love to have your comments to let us know, hey, point us in this right direction, help us with this, what else can I teach? You'll notice I've got this bracket back here on the trailer. That is an upcoming video that I have. I love these outdoor solar lights that we have on our barn, but they send you really janky hardware. And so I'm going to be making a video of how to fix that issue and strengthen up those solar lights, how to make them work better for you. So that's an upcoming video that we got going on. Appreciate everybody watching, and until next time.